Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be looking at marigolds, those like bright and cheery flowers you see in a lot of gardens. And we're going to go in a little deeper than just surface level, really exploring some of the more fascinating facts about them.
Yeah, we might even debunk a myth or two while we're at it.
Exactly.
So the starting point for our deep dive today is a blog post titled Notes on Gardening. Specifically, Part 415, A Marigold Journey of Seed to Seed, published on keyandring.org back in January 2025.
Yeah, this vlog's really interesting. The author, Ang, is self-described as an old software plumber. And they have this extensive online journal. It's really eclectic, all sorts of stuff in there. But what caught our eye for this deep dive was Ang's experience with planting marigolds, because it actually challenges some pretty common beliefs.
Yeah, so Ang decided to plant marigolds for a couple of reasons. One, to see how they would adapt to a balcony garden setting. And two, to try and harvest seeds from them later on.
Makes sense. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But, is that where things take a turn?
Well, it does get a little more complicated. Ang found that the marigold seeds had a surprisingly low germination rate, even though the seeds were fresh. So instead of a ton of marigolds, they ended up with just a couple of seedlings.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine the disappointment?
Yeah, it really highlights just how unpredictable gardening can be sometimes. Even with the best intentions, things don't always go to plan.
So true.
However, Ang was able to keep those two seedlings alive, and eventually one of them actually bloomed.
That's great. Talk about perseverance.
Right?
Okay, so now we have these marigolds growing on this balcony. Did things smooth out from there?
You would think, right?
Okay.
But Ang's experience actually goes against the common belief that marigolds are these powerful pest repellents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they found that the marigolds were susceptible to fungal diseases, and on top of that, they were attracting spider mites.
Wait a second. Spider mites. Isn't the whole point of marigolds to keep pests away? That's pretty surprising.
Yeah, it definitely challenges the idea that marigolds are these pest-repelling superheroes, just so everyone's on the same page. Fungal diseases can manifest as leaf spots or wilting, or even like a powdery mildew on the plants. And spider mites are tiny arachnids that suck the sap from the leaves, which causes them to yellow and eventually die. So neither one is something you want in your garden, and they can both be really difficult to get rid of.
So here's Ang, this software plumber, dealing with these unexpected challenges with the marigolds. What happens next? Do they just give up?
Not at all, actually. Ang actually mentions in the blog that they're determined to keep growing marigolds in the future, despite all the setbacks.
I love that. So you have this situation where marigolds, which are known for deterring pests, are actually attracting pests. What does that tell us about all that conventional gardening wisdom, about companion planting and stuff? Doesn't that make you question the whole one-size-fits-all approach to gardening?
Absolutely. I think Ang's experience highlights just how specific gardening advice can be, even if it's well-intentioned. It emphasizes the importance of observing and understanding your own garden, instead of blindly following all the general rules you hear.
It's not just about whether or not marigolds work as advertised. It's about all those other factors that might be influencing things. Maybe there's something about Ang's balcony environment
Yeah.
that's contributing to the issue. Maybe it has to do with the microclimate there.
Yeah, microclimates can definitely play a big role in plant health and how susceptible they are to pests.
So a microclimate is like a small area with environmental conditions that are slightly different.
Yep, crowning area. Right.
Exactly. So like one corner of a garden might be sunnier or shadier than another,
Yeah.
depending on things like trees or structures.
Oh, that makes sense. So Ang's balcony, because it's enclosed, could have a microclimate that's more conducive to spider mites or fungal diseases.
Right. Maybe it traps heat and humidity, creating this perfect environment for these pests to thrive.
It's kind of like those urban gardens you see tucked between buildings. They often have their own unique microclimates.
Makes sense. So maybe all those generic gardening tips you see about planting one thing to repel another might not apply equally to every garden.
That's a great point. What works for one gardener might not work for another, even if they're growing the same plants. And this brings us to another point from Ang's blog about the low germination rate of the marigold seeds.
Right. It makes you wonder about where the seeds came from
Yeah,
and how they were stored.
exactly. Could be old stock, improper handling, or even the specific variety of marigold.
Yeah, seed quality can really make or break your gardening plans.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to Ang's marigold journey. We've got the challenges with pests, the microclimate, and now the question of the seed quality.
It's getting pretty interesting. So much more to this than meets the eye. Stay
Right.
tuned because we're going to keep exploring this
Mm.
and uncovering more about marigolds and gardening in general and the fascinating interplay of nature.
We'll be back in a bit.
Right after the break. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our marigold deep dive today, inspired by Ang's blog post and all their gardening adventures.
Yeah, it's amazing how one blog post can bring up so many questions.
It really is. Earlier, we were talking about the challenges Ang faced with pests and the whole microclimate situation. But there's one more thing from the blog that I want to explore.
Are you talking about the germination rate of the seeds?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Ang mentioned that they bought these marigold seeds, expecting them to sprout easily, but only a handful actually germinated. It really makes you wonder about what can affect seed viability.
Well, seed age is a big one for sure. Seeds can lose their ability to germinate over time, especially if they're not stored properly. Exposure to things like extreme temperatures, moisture, or even light can degrade the seed and make it less likely to sprout.
So even if you get seeds from a good source, there's no guarantee that they'll all sprout.
Right, and it's not just about how old the seeds are. The variety of marigold can play a role too. Some varieties are just naturally more vigorous than others, which can affect how once they germinate.
So you could have 2 packets of marigold seeds, both fresh,
Hmm.
but one variety might have a way higher germination rate.
Exactly.
It's kind of like those heirloom varieties. They could be a little more difficult, right?
Yeah, heirloom varieties are known for their unique traits, but they can sometimes be harder to germinate. They haven't been bred for commercial production the same way as modern hybrids.
So you might need more specific conditions to grow them.
Yeah, or just a little more patience.
I'm realizing now that there's more to picking out seeds than I thought. It's not just about what looks good on the packet.
Definitely not. Seed quality is so important for a successful garden, especially if you're starting from seed like Ang did. It's worth trying out different seed sources and doing some research.
You know, Ang's determination to keep growing marigolds, even after everything they went through, really stood out to me. It shows how much they love gardening. It makes me think about the unexpected things that happen in the garden. Do you think there's a deeper message there? Like about embracing those twists and turns?
I think there's a connection between being a gardener and the life cycle of a plant. There are highs and lows, successes and setbacks. But you always keep growing, keep learning.
It's a good reminder that gardening isn't about perfect results. It's about the experience, the connection with nature, and what you learn.
Sometimes those unexpected challenges lead to the best insights. If Ang's marigolds hadn't attracted pests, would they have questioned companion planting? Would they have looked into microclimates?
It's like those setbacks made Ang a better gardener. It shows that we can learn from our failures.
Absolutely. It shows how important curiosity is in gardening. Ang didn't just accept the situation, they did research and tried to understand what was happening.
It's like they have a scientific mind.
Maybe their software plumber background had something to do with that.
That's interesting. It's cool how our different backgrounds shape how we garden.
But in the end, it's that love for nature that connects us.
I like that. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being open to learning new things.
Ang's experience really highlights that. It reminds us that gardening is a journey.
Even experienced gardeners are still learning.
Yeah, they're constantly experimenting and trying new things.
What do you think is the most surprising thing about Ang's experience?
That's a good question. I think it's how this simple gardening project with marigolds turned into this big exploration of all these things. Gardening myths, microclimates, seed quality, and how resilient gardeners can be.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Exactly.
More and more complexity with each layer.
With each layer.
It reminds us that we can always learn more, even about things we think we know. And sometimes those unexpected challenges lead us to new discoveries.
Ang's experience with marigolds is a perfect example of that.
It's a story about observing, questioning what you think is true, and accepting that gardening can be unpredictable.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned for the last part of our deep dive. We'll wrap up our exploration of Ang's gardening journey. Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's been quite a journey with these marigolds, hasn't it?
It really has. We've gone from those pest problems to microclimates and seed quality.
So much to think about. But as we wrap things up, I want to zoom out a bit and think about the bigger picture.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, reading about Ang's experience made me think about how we relate to nature as gardeners. It's a bit of a push and pull, isn't it? We want beautiful gardens full of plants, but nature has its own way of doing things.
It's true. We often try to control things in the garden and create these perfect spaces where everything thrives.
Exactly. But as Ang found out, nature doesn't always follow our plans. You get pests, plants that struggle. And the companion plants don't always do what they're supposed to.
It definitely reminds us that we're not in charge. We're just part of this big ecosystem.
How do you think Ang's experience connects to that idea of an ecosystem?
Well, think about the marigolds. They ended up attracting pests, which seems like a bad thing. But remember, those pests are part of the ecosystem too.
So even though those spider mites and fungal diseases are annoying, they're actually doing something important.
Exactly. It's all about perspective.
What we might see as a problem in our gardens could actually be a sign of a healthy ecosystem.
It's like we need to see the bigger picture.
Instead of just looking at each individual plant, we need to see how everything's connected.
And when we do that, it can help us find a better way to garden.
What do you mean by a better way?
Well, maybe instead of trying to get rid of every single pest, we learn to accept a little bit of imperfection.
You know, like those holes in the leaves from a few bugs.
Exactly. We could choose plants that attract good insects and create spaces for wildlife
Yeah.
and focus on building healthy soil.
So it's about working with nature instead of against it.
Exactly. And that makes gardening more enjoyable in the long run.
I like that. It's not about having this perfect garden. It's about appreciating nature's beauty.
And that brings us back to Ang. Even though they had challenges, they didn't stop gardening. They kept learning and caring for those marigolds.
It seems like they gained a new appreciation for the whole process, for how everything's connected in the garden.
That's what makes this so interesting.
It's not just about the end result. It's about the journey and what we learn along the way.
And the connection we make with nature.
Well said. We've reached the end of our Marigold deep dive. What did you learn from all this? How will you approach your garden differently?
Remember to be curious. Don't be afraid of unexpected things. And think of your garden as a tiny part of this huge, amazing world.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy gardening, everyone.